The horrors of war create huge profits for the multinationals and the big global corporations. We've seen that domestically with the fallout of the war in Ukraine. And of course, there's plenty of money in the reconstruction. And who's going to profit from it? Already, the big corporations like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street have already agreed deals at the reconstruction of Ukraine that will profit from. And coincidentally, an Irish multinational, CRH, Cement Roadstone Holdings, which are one of the biggest world international companies in building materials, have been gifted another deal in terms of providing cement for the reconstruction of Ukraine. They did a deal last year to buy 2 extra cement making factories or assets in the country, and they bought them off an Italian company in Ukraine. So currently there's only 1 in 3 active producers in Ukraine, so they will profit massively from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Recently, USaid, famous for Samantha Power, who said 15 to 16 million metric tons of cement will be required on a 3-year reconstruction period. Isn't this interesting? This comes on the back of huge profits for Cement Roadstone Holdings. They're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's very, very fascinating to know that their CEO, Alfred Manifold, earns about €12 million last year in his salary. So he's one of the top paid CEO in Ireland. When you consider that to the average industrial wage, even the median industrial wage, which is far less than the average industrial wage, it's 200 to 300 times in excess of that. And it shows the disconnect and the power that these people at the top of society have when ordinary people are the ones that struggle. And it's interesting when you look at the history of CRH and the whole dodgy dealings that brought these together to open up the privatisation of this market, bringing companies like Irish Cement together with Roadstone at the behest of Jack Lynch at the time, to put Sean Lemass on the board. And also they had connections not just with Fianna Fáil but with Fine Gael, where Peter Barry, an ex-leader of Minister of Finance for Fine Gael, his brother was on the board also as well. Does that ring a bell to the most recent past where we've seen the Coveneys working together in RTE and Fine Gael side by side with these state institutions that are real, completely being captured by the corporations? And this also opened up with the opening up of the so-called free market. It's interesting because this company has been at the helm of a lot of price fixing scandals for many, many years and working in a cartel-like operation. And coincidentally, who's one of the biggest shareholders in them? No prizes for guessing, BlackRock. Who's going to profit from the reconstruction of Ukraine? Who have already been in all these deals to profit from Ukraine? It's BlackRock. It's the big corporations are going to profit massively from the misery of others. And of course, it's going to be a lot through the public purse. This is how corrupt the whole system is and who will profit from the horrors of war. We've seen domestically the fallout of the war in Ukraine in terms of the erosion of Irish neutrality, not to mention the €250 million that's been given over in so-called humanitarian funds using the European Peace Facility for non-lethal military aid. Also using money for support the International Criminal Court in terms of looking for war crimes also as well. And not to mention other money that's been handed over via the HSE, Department of Defence, and many more other state agencies. This is also important to note in terms of the immigration chaos, because this is a critical point of this as well, because well over 100,000 Ukrainians have been housed in Ireland since the inception of the war back in 2022. And in the context of that, that has cost an average per year about €1.5 billion between accommodation and supports as well. Not to mention the pressure that this put on under-resourced public and social services up and down the country. So who profits from it? The commercial property owners, huge transfer of public money into private hands, the big bosses, cheap labour. And who else profits from it? Companies like CRH, who are listed on the New York Stock Exchange, again profiting from years and years of corruption and years of deals with the political classes, how captured the political classes and establishment is by the corporations at the top of society, who profit through the military-industrial complex from the horrors of war, who profit from the so-called reconstruction, and who profit from the misery and debt and destruction that comes with wars. It should be incumbent on all of us to stand up on an anti-war platform. It's critically important that people do stand up against the interests of the ruling classes, because wars never serve the interests of ordinary people. Always the ones to suffer, die because of the horrors of war. And it is very important to note as well, Ireland is a neutral country and been colonised for many years as well. In our constitution, we have to seek Pacific settlements to international disputes. This is very important to know, but it's very important to know to what amount of public money is going into private hands through military-industrial complex, through the war machine, and also out the other end in the so-called reconstruction. And who owns these corporations? Who's behind them? We see BlackRock behind CRH. And as I said, CRH had their much vaunted shady history in Ireland, all facilitated by previous generations of the political classes in Ireland that have always benefited themselves every single time, while exacerbate the divides of inequalities in society when you consider the huge salaries that are being paid to the CEOs of these corporations versus what ordinary people are paying for. And these were supposedly public companies that were supposed to be for the public good. But look how they've been abused and subverted because of the so-called free market, and where the free market reigns and wreaks havoc on people's lives. This is part of the neoliberal agenda through the European Union, privatisation of state assets and what's for the public need and public good. We need to bring our needs back to the people of Ireland. It's critically important that we have an economy and a society that's functioning for the interests of ordinary people, that serves the needs of ordinary people and doesn't end up with the horrors that we've seen of the death and destruction of war, not to mention the homeless, housing crisis, the health crisis, the education crisis, and all these crises that benefit the top end of societies, while the divides get richer or wider in society in terms of the inequalities. 1 in 5 children in Ireland are currently in deprivation, not to mention the homeless figures. And this is how it works. And be mindful, watch out for what goes on, and use your voice to speak out to what's really going on in Irish society. So thanks for all the support, really appreciate it, and take care, and please press subscribe to my YouTube channel. Slán, bye bye.